assault and batteries, but my trunk stay ever ready. Assault and battery, if you scared, you never ready.
All right, one question I get asked the most when it comes to my collection is that if I ever regret selling the things that I did. During COVID, I kind of, I've talked about it many times. I've got out of wrestling, and it was one of those things where I decided to almost move on with my life. I put a lot of my stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Private sellers would reach out to me all the time wanting to buy my classic superstars, and eventually came to the point where I agreed to sell not everything, but a majority of my collection. I had everything listed with like the price that I wanted it for. And a lot of these guys, they flew in from like all parts of Canada, and they would meet me somewhere in Toronto, and I would show them the figures, and they would, I guess, make a trip out of it and then go back to wherever they came from. So it wasn't like a small operation, but looking back on it, it was one of those things where I thought it's what I wanted to do. When I say I sold my collection, it wasn't just figures. I sold my plaques, I sold my DVDs, and it was basically anything that I thought I would not want anymore. And I remember I was talking to Justin, RKO the Infamous NWO, about this because he was a part of a lot of Facebook groups that were really on an onslaught of just selling their collection. And for people who were looking to get rid of their stuff, COVID was the best time to do it. And I remember him messaging me, and he was saying that if I want to get rid of my stuff, now is the best time to do it because people are getting that free money and they're not even thinking twice about like what they spend it on. I remember he sold a lot of his things, and to me, I thought it was crazy. But again, I was kind of on the fence with getting rid of my collection, and it was just a matter of figuring out what I wanted to sell. And I remember he told me his main thing was, for him, it's out of sight, out of mind. And it did make sense because a lot of the stuff in my basement I don't even think about. But there is a sentimental value and a sentimental emotional connection I have to every single thing in my collection, which is basically the reason I'm making this video, because there are times like yesterday, it always comes up in conversation because people, especially my family, they know me for being this over-the-top wrestling fan. They always make jokes on like how I never saved my money, like from the time I was probably 16 to probably 30 at least, maybe even later. That it was all about wrestling, it was about going on trips, it was about buying figures, and it was about having, basically living the best life I could live when it comes to that little world of professional wrestling. And I don't think a lot of people can say they've done what I have done along with my friends from YouTube. But again, there's always a fine line of like passion and then over the top, and I was definitely over the top to my family. But the conversation came up of like, why did you sell your stuff? Because now, especially in this world we're in now, collectibles and autographs and figures are just like going just crazy. It's a really hot thing right now. Kind of makes me think back to the things that I did sell, and I'm like, damn, like I should have held on to this, or what was I even thinking at that time? And just for example, like two things that stick out immediately, actually four. Two of them ended up buying back a couple years ago. It was my WrestleMania 10 Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels. It was my favorite match of all time. And to be honest, I don't know what the hell I was thinking selling it, but I ended up buying a different figure with like a nice ink pen back. So that one, the Montreal Screwjob, I sold and I ended up getting back. But two that I sold that I did not get back was Classic Superstars of Hollywood Hulk Hogan. It was the first time I met him, and looking back, I'm like, it was one of my favorite figures as well. I know I've made videos in the past of like my top 5 favorite classics, and that was on the list. But this guy was very adamant, and he actually flew in from a different province to meet me in Toronto. And he bought at least like 10 figures at the time. And that was one of them. And looking back, I'm like, that was a mistake on my part. And the second figure was a Gold Dust. It was ringside exclusive. It was all gold or whatever. And with that one, it was my first WrestleMania. I met Gold Dust and Dusty Rhodes at the same time. And I remember it was the last day of Access. And it was just a struggle. It was like knowing, it was like an accomplishment almost. I told myself, like, if I don't meet anybody at Access, just those two is like, if I just meet those two, I'll be happy. And when it happened, it was like a fulfillment of like, damn, like, I rushed. I remember they opened those gates to Access, and I knew which booth they were going to be at, and I jetted. I ran as fast as I could to that line, and I was one of the first people in that line. And, the memories are always there, but then I don't have the physical, like, figure to show for it. But I do have the photos. So that kind of leads me to like everyone else who kind of sell their figures, and I realized in the moment, it's like something that maybe you need to do financially, or it's something you want to do to clear some space. And for me, it was like a little bit of both. It was money that I could use in other places, and it was also storage was like whatever. Like I had my parents' basement, like it was full, literally to like I had my own room they made for me so I could put all my shit in there. But it came to the point where I kind of didn't want him anymore, right? It was I talk about it all the time how I got out of wrestling, and it was to me, I'm gonna be a fan forever. You know, I feel like there's no point in trying to fight it. Where it's like, sure, Raw's boring, SmackDown's unbearable to watch, AEW can't get things right half the time, but at the end of the day, like wrestling is something that has been with me from the time I was like 4 years old, and I'm 35 now, and in some fashion, in some sense, wrestling has always stuck around through thick and thin. And what's the point of me trying to like move on from it? I had 4 years where I didn't watch any WrestleMania, no Raws, no SmackDowns. But, you know, one event happened and here I am just like, you know, just deep into it again. And if anyone wants my advice, if you're even debating about selling your collection, it's, you really got to think twice, because once it's gone, like, you know, the value is only going to go up if you're thinking like money wise in the future. But there's that sentimental value that you have for it. And that's honestly, money can't buy that kind of stuff. And for me, I did have to learn the hard way, because there are days where I look around like the small room and I'm like, man, like that Hulk Hogan figure could have been here, and then my Jeff Hardy 2-pack could have been there, whatever. And it's not. And I got to deal with it. And it's something that I learned, obviously, in time, that it's like maybe I should really think twice before making stupid decisions like that. But you live and learn. But for me, anyone who is thinking about it, obviously, if you have no choice, get rid of it. But like if you are kind of on the fence and it's like kind of maybe I can do this, maybe not, I would just hold on to it, because you're gonna miss it one day and you're gonna like really regret, like I do, selling your collection. So that's the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.